two different conversations are happening here. You're talking about what's best for the fans and to garner interest in cross country. Coaches are only thinking about how do I win the NCAA championships or place as high as possible. So both of you guys can be right, but most people are not vying who are around the sport are not coaches that are vying for an NCAA title. Most people around the sport are interested parties who want to be seeing these athletes compete and going hard more than once a season. The comparison that you made to football, it's tough because obviously football is a much different sport. So I just thought about, okay, what about cross country at other levels? How does cross country operate at other levels? And that's kind of difficult because there's not really pro cross country. Yeah, there's the World Cross Country Championships and there's these cross country races in Europe, but those are one offs. So then I went the level below to high school in the United States. And how does it work? And it's somewhat similar to how you laid it out, where there's multiple meets that they need to qualify through. Depends on the state, but hey, you got to get out of your league, you got to get out of your section, your region, your zone, or however you're doing it. But then the regular season, why do high school runners compete in the regular season? Because they're just supposed to. There's just an expectation where if you participate in a sport, you participate in the sport. Because a baseball player or a football player theoretically could sit out game 6 or game 15 or game 5, or the wrestler could not participate in the match. But they don't do that. They just participate. And I think you touched on this well when you got to some of the counter arguments. Oh, they're racing too much. Oh, how are they doing this many 10Ks or this many 5Ks? At a certain point, you got to decide what the sport is. And if you're going to participate in the sport, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have to run sometimes when you don't want to run or when conditions aren't ideal. But if other sports, if every time there was some little minor hiccup and you sat out half of your team because of it, people would look at you funny and say, "Well, why are you doing it's raining, so you're not going to play the quarterback this week?" In high school, if you went to your coach, right, and said, and I'm not saying we need to go to the 2 races a week like they do in some spots in this country for cross country and go full overkill. But you're expected to participate. But for some reason, collegiate cross country is this one area in sports where the expectation is that you don't participate, and if you do, you don't go hard. You're looked at funny. If someone showed up as the number 1 seed this fall and ran every race as hard as they could, Gordon, we'd be like, what are they doing? Are they going to be burned out for nationals? But you don't have that thought process with any other sport or cross country at any level. In high school, when Nico Young was in high school and he was going for the Woodbridge record, right, and he's going for the California State meet record, we're like, awesome, sign me up. This is great to watch. That makes sense. He's a high school kid. He's going for it every single time. The college cross country is this one spot where that's seen as a negative almost, and then everything falls down from there. Everything follows that pattern.
You mentioned it would be ridiculous if a football coach held out their quarterback because it was raining, right?
Yeah.
This isn't even that. This would be like a football coach holding their quarterback out because it's raining and instead have them do a simulated football game indoors while
Yeah.
the other game is going on. Because we see these runners aren't resting on the races that they're not running. They're working out.
Yeah.
They're doing hard
Yeah.
workouts instead of racing.
Yeah.
It's not like these athletes aren't we have basically have decided that hard workouts are more important than races.
Yeah.
And
Because yeah,
yeah,
the coaches want
it's
ultimate control. And I don't blame them because
yeah,
they're operating with the incentives that are given. But the coaches want
yes.
complete control and they want to minimize any variables and they want to have as much say in how the sport is run. And I get that. But their interest is not in getting more people to pay attention to the sport. Their interest is winning the conference championship, winning the NCAA championship, or qualifying for the NCAA championship, getting on the podium, getting a trophy. But they they are one part of the sport. They're not the entire sport. And you're right. If it wants to move beyond what it is, which is there's a small group that's very, very interested in it, and there's other people I think who would be more interested in it. There's more people who would be interested in it if they took the whole season seriously. And again, that doesn't need to be 7 10Ks in a row, back to back to back to back. But how am I as a fan supposed to care about something more than the person who's participating in it? That's strange. That doesn't
Yeah.
that's an imbalance that you can't correct for.